Hi, I'm Amina Wasuma, and I'm here to tell you about my novella, For the Love of Blood, Episode 7, Father Knows Best. Now, we left off where Amber was in Washington, and she was withdrawing from her cocaine habit. Anyway, she got through the night. So the next day, she's doing a shoot, and it's sort of like the 4th of July. It's for the 4th of July. So everybody's in red, white, and blue. And she gets through the day okay. She has a few sweating moments, but she gets through. And that night, she meets Professor Stone at a swank restaurant in Washington. Now, Professor Stone is her father, and he works at EBW Tech, Experimental Biological Warfare Technology. And this is for the government. And it's a kind of like a top secret facility. But anyway, he hadn't seen Amber in a while, and so they meet for dinner. And she's waiting for him. She arrives early, and she's waiting for him. And he comes in, and they escort him to the table. Nice-looking African-American man, around 60. And so he sits down with her. And, oh, Daddy, I'm so glad, we could meet. And he says, well, did you order yet? And she says, no, I was waiting for you to come. And so I said, well, let's have a talk before we, eat. And he was like, well, okay. So what have you been doing? She says, oh, I'm modeling, And, he says, well, have you been drinking lately? And she's like, no, we don't need to go into that. And he said, well, I know you. One drink is not enough. And she says, no, I haven't been drinking. He said, well, what else have you been doing? And she says, nothing. Why are you giving me the third degree? We haven't seen each other in a while, and I wanted to just know about you. Like, what are you doing? And, how is your work going? And he's like, well, I can't talk about my work. And so she says, well, I have a boyfriend. And he's like, a boyfriend? Yeah. And I like him a lot. Right away, Professor Stone says, I hope he's not a bum, because that's all you ever attract is bums. What does he do for a living? And Amber says, well, he's looking for a job. Okay, he's looking for a job. So he's living off of you. No, I mean, he's independent. He's trying to get himself together, and I just thought I would help. I said, there you go. Why can't you find someone who has money, who has a career, who can take care of you? And she says, well, that's what you do. You send me a check every month. He says, yeah, I know. She says, well, I'm coming into my own soon, and then I won't be needing your checks. As soon as I make it as a model, I will tell you to stop sending me any checks. Yeah, well, that'll be the day, So I'm hoping that you would find some man that would take care of you, get married, and then I wouldn't have to send you any checks. She said, well, he's a nice guy, and I really like him. And he says, yeah. Do I have to stay on top of you for everything? She says, you know what, Daddy? I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to continue to see this guy. Well, he sounds like a bum to me. So how do you know? You haven't even met him. He said, he's a bum. Get rid of him. He doesn't have a job. He's looking for a job. And he should be established. I mean, I want my daughter to be with a provider. And so she said, well, I'm not going to talk about it. Let's just enjoy our dinner. And, I have to go back to New York tomorrow morning. Oh, I did a shoot today, and it went wonderful. So they have their dinner, and he has a limousine, and, she drops him off, at his apartment, and then the limousine takes her to the hotel. She kisses her daddy goodnight and everything, and hope we can see each other again. And he said, well, I don't know. She said, well, what about Christmas? I don't know about that either. Call me. So anyway, that's what she said before she got back to the hotel. So now she's at the hotel, and she goes to sleep, and she's doing okay. She's not having bad withdrawals, but she is withdrawing. So the next day she flies back to New York, and she goes to the stash, and Blood opens the door. Welcome home, Amberstone. Look what I've gotten for you. And what did you get for me? So he says, I got a bottle of liquor. So he got the liquor. He takes her to the kitchen, and he set the table. He's got spaghetti. He's got, she's got the liquor and everything. And she's like, oh, you did all of this for me? He said, yeah, I fixed you a wonderful dinner. I knew, I knew you were coming. And, I'm so glad you're back. So she sits down to eat, and this is delicious and everything. And so she says, he says, well, how did it go with you and your father? And so she says, well, it went okay. So did you tell him about me? She said, no, I didn't tell him about you. He said, you didn't tell him about me? She says, no, I didn't. Because she didn't want to tell Blood, yeah, I told him about you, and he didn't approve of you. So she says, I didn't tell him about you. He says, okay. She said, well, did you find a job, or did you look for a job? He said, well, I had to get some suits made, remember? She said, well, where are the suits? He said, well, they're at the tailor. And so she says, well, how long are they going to, when can you get them? And so he says, well, I don't know. She said, well, give me the number to the tailor and I'll call. And he says, Amber, there's something I have to tell you. And she says, what? He said, I never went and got the suits. She says, what? She says, no. I gambled up the money. And she was like, are you crazy? I gave you that money to jumpstart your life. So now I want my money back. I'm trying to help you become something. So she gets up. She says, I'm going to the bathroom. So she goes into the bathroom. Next thing we know, she's yelling and screaming. And she comes out of the bathroom with some pink panties. And she says, Blood, whose underwear is this? Whose panties are these? And he's like, I don't know. She said, well, they're not mine. He said, well, okay. While you was away, I ran into Deanna. And she was like, you had Deanna in here? He said, well, baby, I was thinking about you, and I was lonely. And she was like, you know what? I told you, Blood, if you cheat on me, it would be over. Now I want my money. Deanna and these other girls can have you. And you know something? I was sticking up for you for my father. But my father was right. He said you were no good. And now I believe him. So he said, well, wait a minute, baby, don't leave, let me make it up to you. And he's putting his arms all on her, and wrapping her in his arms and whatnot. And she's like, no, don't touch me. This is the ultimate betrayal. Okay? I'm out of here. And I want my money. So he says, well, okay, here, I got $1,500 worth of cocaine. I'll give you $1,000 worth, and then I'll owe you the rest. And so she said, I'll take it. And she takes the coke and puts it in her bosom. Just get my money, it's over between us. And she leaves. And so he sits there and he thinks. And she goes back to her apartment that she never gave up. And she sits there and she cries. Because it really hits her now, And she starts to sniffing the coke. And she's thinking about, all the things that he did. She's like, I'm through with him. This time I'm really through with him. I don't know. So she just cries and cries, sniffs the coke, drinks. So meanwhile, Blood is talking to Soupy and Jonesy and Cisco. They come over, and they're sitting there playing cards. And he's saying, you know what? I decided that we should do a stick up. So they said, well, where? He said, Amber's Bank. So Cisco said, well, she's not going to like that. If you do that. He said, well, I cast a check there, and I realized there was only one security guard, and they carry a large sum of money. So they said, well, when do you want to do it? He said, well, the weather is supposed to be raining tomorrow. Let's do it tomorrow around 12 noon. That way the traffic is jammed up. We go downtown, and the police is about 10 blocks away from the bank. They won't be able to get there. We can get in and out. So they said, well, okay, let's do that. So sure enough, the next day, it was pouring down raining. And Cisco drove the van around the corner from the bank. They all put on their stocking caps, jumped out of the van, pouring raining, rush into the bank, stick up. Everybody gets down on the floor, and Blood is like, give me the money, give me the money. And so the cashiers are giving them the money, giving Cisco and Jonesy the money. So as they're going out, the security guard snatches Blood's mask off. So now you see his face, the stocking cap. And they're fighting, and Blood shoots and kills him and exits the bank. They get in the van. Actually, they put the money in the van, and Cisco gets in the van, and Cisco drives the van to the stash while they get on the subway and meet him at the stash. Now, they're at the stash. They're counting the money. They got over, oh my God, $300,000. So now they have his face all over the news, 6 o'clock news. And Amber is at home looking at the news, and Blood's face comes on it, saying he's wanted for armed robbery of the First National Bank, and he killed a security guard. The other 3 men, they didn't know who they were, but they recognized him. He has a rap sheet. And I was like, what? And then the phone rings. And she answers it. And it's Blood. And he says, And she says, well, what do you want? You're all over the news. And he says, well, I called you. And she said, well, what are you calling me for? He said, because I love you. And she was like, no, you don't love me. You don't love anybody. I don't even think you love yourself. He said, well, I got to leave town. And she says, well, where are you going? He said, well, I can't say. He said, I got to leave town. I'm going to send you some extra money. Just, hold out and I'll send it to you. And she's like, I don't want anything. Hell, I don't even want to see you anymore. And he was like, I love you. You don't mean that. And he hangs up the phone. I saw him and Cisco and Jonesy and Soupy. They go down to Union Station and they go their way. They're going to Philadelphia and Chicago. And Blood is going to New Jersey because a car is coming to pick him up. So they all say goodbye, go their separate ways. And Blood goes to New Jersey, it's pouring raining, and he's standing, at a phone booth, and the phone rings, and he speaks on the phone. That's the contact coming to pick him up. And he's waiting, and a limo comes up with dark tinted lens. He gets in and takes him to a plane, and he goes to Colombia, South America. Now, Amber goes to work the next day. She's doing a shoot with Bill, and the FBI comes in. And Amber Stone, yes, you're under arrest. And she was like, for what charges? So now, there are two FBI agents. One looks in her pocketbook and she's got the coke in it. And he says, well, you're under arrest for possession, also as an accomplice in a bank robbery. She said, I didn't rob a bank. So, well, your boyfriend did, because we got pictures of him cashing the check that you gave him. And so we feel that you have something to do with it. And she was like, no, I don't have nothing to do with it. So they take her in, they book her. It's a big scandal, model in cahoots with bank robbers. And she's sitting in jail. And finally, Willie comes, her agent, and says, well, you want me to bail you out or whatever? She said, well, they haven't said anything to me yet. I'll let you know tomorrow. And she says, well, I'm the one who told the press about it. And, because Bill called me and told me you got arrested. And it'll be great for your career, the publicity. She's like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. I had nothing to do with this. So Willie leaves her, and then she's interrogated. And the FBI agents tell her that Blood is a small fish. Who they want is Banderos. And they know that he took a plane to Colombia. And she was like, I don't know anything about this. And so they tell her everything about Blood. He's been in jail at 17. He was there for 10 years. He's got a rap sheet, longer than her arm. And she said, well, what do you want me to do? So they said, well, we want you to go to Colombia and get back with him. Because she says, I don't want to see him anymore. I broke up with him. So we want you to go to Colombia, get back with him, and find out where Banderos is located, because no one in Colombia knows where his hideout is. And he's like a big drug dealer, and we want to get him, and we can't. So she says, well, if they find out that I'm a snitch, they'll kill me. So, well, that's your job, for them not to find out. So they said, well, either you do that or you go to jail. She said, well, I haven't done anything. I said, we'll put it on your rap sheet. You're going to either cooperate, or you go. And what we have now is called the Agent Zero program. And what we do is we take people who are on the verge, the borderline of committing a crime. So even though you don't sell the drugs, you use the drugs, and you're supplying business, for this drug dealer. So now either you're a part of the problem or you're going to be the solution. Which is it? So she says, well, I have rights. You can't do this to me. My father works for the government. I was like, we can fix it. Where you don't get out for a very, very long time. Because we want Banderos. And she says, okay. So she said, let me think about it. So they leave her in the cell, overnight. And she starts hallucinating. Seems like the coke just, she had a relapse. And she's hallucinating and she's screaming, and the guard comes in and she attacks the guard. She throws her all over the cell. Then another guard comes in and hits her in the head and knocks her out. Listen, I don't care what she does. You don't go in and try to help her. She's probably on drugs and hallucinating, and you just let her kick, dry out. So the next morning, she wakes up with an awful headache, and they bring her some coffee, and they take her to the interrogation room. Say, well, Amber, have you decided? It's either jail or South America. And she says, I'll go to South America. So we got a man down there named Cortez that will train you. And he'll train you to be an agent. And then when he gets finished training you, you will be sent to meet Blood. So, well, what if he doesn't like me? What if he's not interested? So, well, that's your job to make him interested. Because your career as a model is over. So what am I going to tell my father? What am I going to tell my friends? So don't worry, we'll tell your friends you're away on an extensive modeling job as a cover, for us, but only thing, you're modeling for us now. And so what if I get killed? That's your problem. So she gets ready. She goes home, and she takes a shower and puts on clothes, and she has the coke. She throws the coke out of the window. She has some coke in her drawer, and she just throws it out the window. And when she looks out the window, there's a Secret Service man waiting for her downstairs. And so when she gets dressed, she goes downstairs. He puts her in the car, drives her to the airport, escorts her to inside the airport to make sure she gets on the plane. And she gets on the plane, and she goes to South America, Colombia. So, it's a whole new life. Just like that. Her life has changed on a dime. She doesn't even know what awaits her. All she knows is that she's going to be trained by Cortez, you know? And she doesn't know, what Blood is going to say. He's got to train her and she's got to be ready. And now she's a secret agent. She's a DEA agent. Undercover. So, tune in for episode 8, Gunsmoke.